If marriage is paperwork, then I guess I'm the office printer, ignored until I jam. That's what I was thinking when my wife Fiona stood up at the Hendersons' garden party, champagne flute raised high, and announced to 30 of our closest frenemies that marriage is really just paperwork, isn't it? She laughed that crystalline laugh she'd perfected for public consumption, the one that made men lean forward and women check their lipstick. I mean, honestly, what's the difference between a marriage certificate and a car title? Both just prove ownership. The crowd ate it up. Nervous laughter rippled through the assembled suburbanites like a wave at a baseball game. I stood there holding my beer, watching my wife of 16 years reduce our relationship to a DMV transaction, and I did what I always did. I smiled, made a mental note, calculated the angles. My name is Tom Harker. I'm 41 years old and I manage IT projects for a pharmaceutical company in Columbus, Ohio. I'm not the hero of this story. I'm not even particularly interesting. I'm the guy you don't notice at parties, the one who refills the ice bucket and remembers everyone's drink order. The invisible man with the photographic memory and a talent for reading room dynamics, like other people read comic books. Fiona, on the other hand, is a PR director at one of the city's top firms. She's magnetic in the way that certain people are, the kind who walk into a room and immediately become its center of gravity. At 38, she still turned heads. Blonde hair that cost $400 every 6 weeks to maintain. Yoga-sculpted body. Wardrobe that screamed, "I have taste," and the credit limit to prove it. We lived in Riverside Estates, where the houses all looked vaguely Mediterranean, and the HOA fined you if your grass exceeded 3 inches. Our daughter Zoe was 15, sharp as a tack, and had inherited my sarcasm, along with her mother's cheekbones. She was at a friend's house that night, spared the spectacle of her mother's performance art. "Tom," Fiona called out, spotting me by the drinks table. "Come here, honey. Tell everyone about that thing at work. The paperwork disaster." I walked over, feeling 30 pairs of eyes track my movement. This was Fiona's favorite game. Put Tom on display, watch him perform, then dismiss him with a pat on the head. I'd been playing along for years. "Which disaster?" I asked mildly. "We have several running concurrently. It's very efficient." Polite chuckles. Fiona's smile tightened microscopically, only I would have noticed. "The compliance audit," she prompted. "The one that had you working late every night last month." "Oh, that." I took a sip of my beer. "Yeah, turns out when you don't file the right paperwork, the FDA gets cranky. Who knew documentation was important?" More laughter, louder this time. I was playing the self-deprecating schlub and they loved it. But I was watching Greg Stiles, standing near Fiona with his hand resting casually on the back of her chair. Too casually, too familiar. Greg, the silverback Stiles, owned a chain of gyms called Alpha Athletics. He was 44, 6'3", and had the kind of muscles that required both pharmaceutical assistance and an Instagram account. His wife Marcy was somewhere inside the house, probably comparing kitchen renovations with the other women. Greg was out here, orbiting my wife like a moon with abandonment issues. "Paperwork," Greg said, shaking his head with theatrical disgust. "That's what's wrong with this country. Too much red tape, too many rules, not enough people just doing what feels right, you know?" I knew exactly what he meant. I'd seen the way he looked at Fiona, the way she angled her body toward him when they talked, the way they'd both disappeared for 20 minutes during the Johnsons' 4th of July barbecue. "Totally," I agreed, raising my beer in a mock toast, "to doing what feels right, and to paperwork, especially the fine print." Fiona's eyes narrowed slightly. She knew me well enough to recognize when I was being sincere and when I was sharpening knives. But she couldn't call me out without looking paranoid, so she just smiled and changed the subject. The party continued. I made small talk with Peter Kim from my office, a good guy who spent most social events looking vaguely uncomfortable, like a dog at a cat show. I listened to our neighbor Bill Henderson explain his new Tesla's features for the 3rd time that month. I watched, and I overheard. That's my superpower, if you can call it that. I'm forgettable. People talk around me like I'm furniture. Around 10:30, I was inside the house, ostensibly looking for the bathroom, when I heard Fiona's voice from the kitchen. She was talking to her best friend, Lexi Morgan, a 39-year-old gossip merchant who treated other people's business like a commodity to be traded. "I'm just saying," Fiona was saying, "there's boring, and then there's Tom-level boring. The man makes accounting look exciting." Lexi laughed. "So why stay?" "Zoe, the house, the lifestyle." A pause. "And honestly, he's useful. He handles all the tedious stuff, bills, taxes, maintenance. He's like having a very efficient personal assistant who occasionally shares your bed." "Occasionally?" Lexi's voice dripped with innuendo. "Please. We haven't had sex in 8 months. Not real sex anyway, the kind where you actually want the other person." My hand was on the bathroom doorknob. I stood there, frozen, listening to my wife dissect our marriage like a biology class frog. "Greg, though," Lexi said. "Girl, that man is—" "I know." Fiona's voice went soft, almost dreamy. "He makes me feel alive again, like I'm not just someone's boring wife in a boring house with a boring life." I went into the bathroom, closed the door, looked at myself in the mirror. The boring guy looked back at me, thinning brown hair, average height, the kind of face you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting. Crow's feet starting around the eyes, a slight paunch despite my best efforts. Boring Tom, useful Tom, Tom the personal assistant with bedroom privileges. I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recorder app. Then I went back outside. The party was winding down. People were saying their goodbyes, exchanging air kisses and promises to do lunch. I found Fiona by the garden gate, talking to Greg. They stood close together, heads bent in conversation. Too close for casual friends. Too intimate for a public space. I positioned myself near a hydrangea bush, phone in my pocket, recorder running. "Can't keep doing this," Fiona was saying. "Marcy's getting suspicious." "Marcy's always suspicious," Greg replied. "She thinks I'm cheating every time I'm late from the gym." "You are cheating." "Yeah, but she doesn't know that." He laughed, low and confident. "Besides, what's she going to do? She signed a prenup. She's got nothing." "Tom didn't." Fiona's voice was thoughtful. "But he'd never suspect. He's too passive, too comfortable." "You sure about that?" "Please." The man's idea of rebellion is buying name-brand cereal instead of store-brand. He'll never see it coming. Those words, that phrase. He'll never see it coming. I stood there in the darkness, recording my wife's betrayal, and something cold and calculating settled into my chest. Not anger, not yet. Anger was hot and impulsive and stupid. This was different. This was the feeling you get when you're working through a complex problem, when all the variables suddenly align and you see the solution with perfect clarity. I'd spent 16 years being useful, boring Tom, the guy who handled the tedious stuff, the personal assistant with bedroom privileges. Time to update my job description. I stopped the recording and walked back to the party. Found Fiona saying goodbye to the Hendersons. Slipped my hand into hers like the dutiful husband I was supposed to be. "Ready to go?" I asked. She smiled at me, the same smile she'd been giving me for 16 years. "Yes, I'm exhausted." We drove home in comfortable silence. She checked her phone, probably texting Greg. I drove and thought about paperwork, about fine print, about all the tedious details that boring people like me paid attention to, while exciting people like Fiona and Greg did what felt right. At home, Fiona went straight upstairs. I heard the shower start. I sat in my home office, the small room off the kitchen that Fiona called Tom's cave, and I opened my laptop. First, I backed up the recording to 3 different cloud services. Then I started a new folder. Called it documentation, because that's what boring people do. We document things. I pulled up our bank accounts, our credit cards, our mortgage, the title to Fiona's car, which was in both our names, the deed to the house, also joint, our investment accounts, Zoe's college fund, 16 years of paperwork, 16 years of boring, tedious, useful Tom, handling all the details while Fiona focused on being exciting and alive. I smiled at the screen. She was right about one thing. Paperwork was important. And I was very, very good at it. The thing about betrayal is that once you know it's there, you see it everywhere. It's like learning a new word and then hearing it constantly. Suddenly, Fiona's late nights at work weren't about difficult clients. Her new workout schedule wasn't about fitness goals. The way she angled her phone away from me wasn't about privacy. It was about secrets. I didn't confront her. That's what the hot-headed, impulsive version of Tom would have done. The boring version, the useful version, did what he did best. I documented. It started small. I noticed Fiona had a second phone, a cheap prepaid burner she kept in her gym bag. I found it one Tuesday morning while she was in the shower. No password. Greg wasn't dating her for her OPSEC skills. The messages were exactly what you'd expect. Explicit photos, plans to meet at the Marriott downtown, complaints about their respective spouses, Greg calling me the robot, and Fiona laughing about how I probably wouldn't notice if she stopped coming home at all. I took screenshots, lots of them, backed them up, put the phone back exactly where I'd found it. At work, I was my usual competent self. I managed projects, ran meetings, solved problems. Peter Kim noticed something different, though. "You seem, I don't know," he said one afternoon, sitting in my office with his sad desk lunch. "Lighter? Is that weird to say? Lighter? Like you're not carrying something heavy anymore." He stabbed at his salad. "Melissa and I went to therapy last year. The therapist said resentment is like carrying rocks in your pockets. You get used to the weight, but it's still dragging you down." I thought about that. What if you put the rocks down? Then you can move faster. He grinned. Or throw them at someone. The therapist didn't recommend that option, but I think about it sometimes. I laughed. Peter was a good guy, honest, loyal, the kind of friend who'd help you move a body without asking questions. Not that it would come to that. That afternoon, I had a different kind of meeting. Her name was Priya Singh, and she was a divorce attorney with a reputation for being absolutely ruthless. Her office was in a converted warehouse downtown, all exposed brick and modern furniture. She was 45, sharp-eyed, and wore a suit that probably cost more than my car payment. "Mr. Harker," she said, shaking my hand with a grip that could crack walnuts. "Tell me why you're here," I told her. Not everything. Not the revenge part that was taking shape in my head like a sculpture emerging from marble. Just the facts, the affair, the evidence, the assets, the daughter. She listened without interrupting, making notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she sat back and studied me. "You're very calm about this." "I'm a project manager. Calm is my default setting. Most people come in here crying or screaming. You're treating this like a business transaction. Isn't it?" I met her eyes. She said marriage is just paperwork. I'm taking her at her word. A slow smile spread across Priya Singh's face. "Oh, I like you. Yes, Mr. Harker. Let's do some paperwork." We spent 2 hours going through everything. Ohio was an equitable distribution state, not community property, which meant the court would divide assets fairly, but not necessarily equally. Fiona's affair would be relevant, but not determinative. Ohio was a no-fault divorce state. What mattered was documentation, preparation, and strategy. "The key," Priya explained, "is to file first and file smart. We freeze the assets, establish temporary custody, set the narrative. By the time she realizes what's happening, we're 3 moves ahead." Like chess. Exactly like chess. And Mr. Harker, you strike me as someone who thinks several moves ahead. I thought about the recording, the screenshots, the folder on my laptop that was growing daily. I've been known to plan ahead. Good. Here's what we're going to do. She laid it out like a battle plan. I would continue acting normal. No confrontations, no accusations, no tipping my hand. Meanwhile, I'd document everything. Financial records, evidence of the affair, Fiona's fitness as a parent. We'd prepare the filing, get everything ready, and then strike fast and hard. How long? I asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3. We need to be thorough. I nodded. I could do 3 weeks. I'd been doing 16 years. That evening, I stopped at Grounds for Divorce, a coffee shop near our neighborhood. Ironic name, given my circumstances. It was the local gossip hub where stay-at-home parents and work-from-home professionals gathered to share information like Cold War spies trading secrets. I ordered a black coffee and sat near the window. Within 10 minutes, I heard exactly what I'd come for. "Saw them at the Marriott last Thursday," a woman was saying. I recognized her. Diane something lived 3 streets over. His car was parked in the back lot. Her car was parked at the mall across the street. Like we're all idiots. "Marcy has to know," her companion replied. "There's no way she doesn't know." "Oh, she knows. I saw her at Whole Foods yesterday, and she looked like she wanted to murder someone. Asked me if I'd seen Greg around. I played dumb, but—" Marcy. Greg's wife. I'd met her a few times at neighborhood events. She was 42, sharp-featured, with the kind of intensity that made you think she'd been a prosecutor in a previous life. Greg had mentioned a prenup. If Marcy was suspicious, that could be useful. I filed that information away and went home. Fiona was in the kitchen, making dinner. She'd been doing that more lately. Cooking, being domestic, playing the role of devoted wife. Guilt, probably. Or maybe just maintaining the cover story. "How was work?" she asked, not looking up from the cutting board. "Fine. Boring. You know how it is." She was texting with one hand while chopping vegetables with the other. Impressive and dangerous. "I have to work late tomorrow. Client dinner." "Sure, I'll pick up Zoe from soccer practice." "Thanks, honey. You're the best." Honey, the best. The useful personal assistant who handled the tedious stuff. I watched her cook and text and lie, and I felt nothing. That coldness from the party had settled in permanently, like winter moving into my chest and deciding to stay. After dinner, I went to my office, pulled up the bank accounts. Fiona had been moving money, small amounts, nothing that would trigger alerts, but steady. 500 here, 1,000 there, all going to a separate account I wasn't supposed to know about. I documented it, added it to the folder. Then I did something else. I created a new email account, completely anonymous, and sent a message to Greg Stiles. Just a simple note. "You deserve to know the truth. Check your husband's phone, check the Marriott, check his Tuesday and Thursday late nights." I didn't sign it, didn't add details, just enough to make her look. Because here's the thing about revenge. It's not about getting your hands dirty. It's about creating the conditions where your enemies destroy themselves. It's about being the invisible hand that tips the first domino and then steps back to watch the chain reaction. I was very good at being invisible. The next morning, Fiona left early for work. I waited 30 minutes, then went through the house systematically. Found the burner phone again, more messages, including one from that morning. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Wear that thing I like." I took more screenshots. Then I did something I'd been planning. I installed a small GPS tracker on Fiona's car. Nothing illegal, it was jointly owned, and Ohio law allowed tracking of jointly owned vehicles. Just another piece of documentation. At work, I had a meeting with my boss, Robert Chen. He was 50, perpetually stressed, and treated the IT department like a mysterious priesthood, whose rituals he didn't understand, but desperately needed. "Tom," he said, closing his office door, "I wanted to talk to you about the Denver position." I'd forgotten about Denver. The company was opening a new facility, and they needed someone to head up the IT infrastructure. It was a promotion, more money, more responsibility, more prestige. "I know you said you weren't interested last month," Robert continued, "but I wanted to check in again. The position is still open. You'd be perfect for it. Denver. 2,000 miles from Fiona and Greg and this whole mess. A fresh start. Can I think about it? I asked. Of course, take your time. But Tom? He leaned forward. Between you and me, you seem different lately. Happier, maybe. Or at least less. I don't know. Less weighted down. Whatever's changed, it's good. You're doing great work. Less weighted down. Peter had said something similar. Maybe I was lighter. Maybe when you stop trying to save a sinking ship, you float better. That evening, I picked up Zoe from soccer practice. She got in the car, sweaty and irritated, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Coach is an idiot, she announced. He made us run sprints for 20 minutes because Brittany was late. Collective punishment is literally a war crime under the Geneva Conventions. I don't think high school soccer falls under international humanitarian law. It should. She pulled out her phone, then looked at me. Dad, are you and Mom okay? My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Why do you ask? I don't know. You guys are weird lately. Weirder than normal. Mom's always on her phone and you're always in your office. And nobody talks at dinner. We just sit there like strangers at a bus stop. Smart kid. Too smart. Your mom and I are working through some stuff, I said carefully. But whatever happens, you know we both love you, right? Oh God. She slumped in her seat. You're getting divorced. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. You used the "we both love you" line. That's what parents say before they announce they're splitting up. I've seen it happen to like 6 kids at school. I pulled into our driveway and turned off the car. Looked at my daughter, this sharp, sarcastic, brilliant 15-year-old who deserved better than parents who treated marriage like paperwork. If things change, I said, and I'm not saying they will, but if they do, you'll be okay. I promise. She studied me with eyes that were too old for her age. Are you okay? Was I? I thought about the folder on my laptop, the lawyer's office, the GPS tracker, the anonymous email to Marcy Stiles, the cold, calculating thing I was becoming. I'm going to be, I said. That night, Fiona came home at 11:30, smelling like wine and expensive cologne that wasn't mine. She kissed me on the cheek, the kiss you'd give a relative you barely knew, and went upstairs. I stayed in my office, watching the GPS tracker data. She'd been at the Marriott from 7:15 to 11, 3.5 hours. I added it to the documentation. Then I checked my anonymous email account. Marcy Stiles had replied, "Who is this?" I typed back, "Someone who thought you deserved to know. Check his phone. You'll find everything you need." I hit send and closed the laptop. In chess, there's a concept called zugzwang, a position where any move you make worsens your position, but you're forced to move anyway. I was building a zugzwang for Fiona and Greg. Every move they made, every lie they told, every secret meeting, it all tightened the noose, and they had no idea I was even playing. 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday morning, I walked into the courthouse downtown and filed for divorce. Fiona was at work, probably texting Greg about their next rendezvous. Zoe was at school. I was standing in a fluorescent-lit government office, signing paperwork that would detonate my life like a controlled demolition. Priya Singh stood beside me, reviewing the documents one final time. We'd included everything: the evidence of the affair, the financial records, a request for primary custody of Zoe, and a motion to freeze all joint accounts pending the proceedings. "Once we file this," Priya said, "there's no going back. She'll be served at her office tomorrow morning. Are you ready?" I thought about Fiona's laugh at the party. Marriage is just paperwork. I thought about her voice in the kitchen. He's useful. I thought about 16 years of being invisible while she lived her exciting life. "I'm ready." The clerk stamped the documents. Just like that, I was officially separated. The marriage wasn't over yet. Ohio required a waiting period, and we'd have to work through the asset division and custody arrangement. But the wheels were in motion. I went to work, had a normal day, ran a meeting about database migration, ate lunch with Peter, who was complaining about his fantasy football league. I was calm, focused, boring Tom, doing boring Tom things. At 3:30, my phone buzzed. A text from Fiona. We need to talk, now. She'd been served, right on schedule. I didn't respond immediately. Let her stew for an hour. At 4:30, I replied, I'll be home at 6. We can talk then. Her response was immediate. You filed for divorce? Without even talking to me? I typed back. I thought marriage was just paperwork. I'm just filing some forms. I could practically feel her rage through the phone. Good. When I got home, Fiona's car was already in the driveway, parked at an angry angle like she'd been in too much of a hurry to care. I walked in to find her pacing the living room, still in her work clothes, her face flushed with fury. What the hell is this? She waved the divorce papers at me like a weapon. You filed for divorce? You froze our accounts? You're asking for primary custody? I set down my briefcase. Yes to all of the above. Without even discussing it with me? Without even trying to work things out? Work what out exactly? I kept my voice level, calm. Our marriage? The one that's just paperwork? Or should we discuss your relationship with Greg Stiles? The one you've been conducting at the Marriott downtown every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 6 months? Her face went white, then red, then white again. How did you? I'm boring, Fiona, not blind. I walked to the kitchen, got a beer from the fridge. I'm also very good at documentation, comes with the job. You were spying on me? I was paying attention. There's a difference. I opened the beer, took a sip. You want to see the evidence? I've got screenshots of your burner phone, GPS data from your car, credit card receipts from the hotel, a recording of you and Greg at the Hendersons' party, discussing how I'd never see it coming. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You recorded us? I documented a conversation that took place in a public space. Perfectly legal in Ohio, one-party consent state. Though, technically, I wasn't even a party to the conversation, so it's even cleaner legally. You son of a bitch. Probably. But I'm a son of a bitch with an excellent lawyer and 16 years of financial records showing exactly how our assets should be divided. I sat down on the couch. You wanted paperwork, Fiona. Congratulations. You're drowning in it. She was shaking now, whether from rage or fear, I couldn't tell. I could fight this. You could what? Claim the affair didn't happen? I've got evidence that would make a prosecutor weep with joy. Contest the asset division? I've handled our finances for 16 years. I know where every penny is, including the $43,000 you've been skimming into your secret account. I took another sip of beer. Or maybe you want to fight for custody? Explain to a judge why Zoe should live primarily with a mother who's been conducting an affair and lying about it? A mother who told her best friend that her daughter was just one of the reasons she stayed in a boring marriage. You're twisting everything. I'm stating facts. That's what boring people do. She collapsed into a chair, the fight draining out of her. I never meant for this to happen. Which part? The affair or getting caught? Tom, her voice cracked. We could work this out. Go to counseling. I could end things with Greg. We could start over. For a moment, just a moment, I felt something. Not sympathy exactly. More like the ghost of the love I'd once felt for this woman. The memory of the 22-year-old I'd married before she'd become this person who treated me like furniture. Then I remembered her voice in the kitchen. He's useful. Like having a very efficient personal assistant. No, I said. We're done. You'll get the settlement offer from my attorney next week. I suggest you hire your own lawyer, a good one. You're going to need it. Where am I supposed to go? This is my house, too. Actually, according to the temporary orders filed with the divorce petition, I have exclusive use of the marital residence pending the proceedings. You have 72 hours to collect your personal belongings. After that, I'll pack them up and put them in storage. She looked at me like she'd never seen me before. "Who are you?" "I'm the guy who read the fine print." I finished my beer. "You should try it sometime." She left that night, threw clothes in a suitcase, grabbed her toiletries, and walked out without another word. I heard her car start, heard the angry squeal of tires as she backed out of the driveway. Then silence. I sat in the empty house and waited for the guilt to hit, the regret, the second thoughts. Nothing came. Just that cold clarity, sharp as a knife. Zoe came home an hour later. She took one look at me sitting in the quiet house and said, "She's gone. For now." "Good." She dropped her backpack by the door. "Dad?" "I know about Greg. I've known for months. I'm not stupid." I stared at my daughter. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I wanted to see what you'd do." She sat down next to me. "I was worried you'd just take it, that you'd let her walk all over you forever because that's what you always do. But you didn't. You actually did something." "I filed for divorce." "No." She shook her head. "You stood up for yourself. Finally. I'm proud of you." I put my arm around her, and she leaned into me, and we sat there in the quiet house that was suddenly, unexpectedly, peaceful. The next morning I changed all the passwords. Bank accounts, streaming services, email, everything. I called the credit card companies and removed Fiona as an authorized user. I went through the house and collected anything of significant value, documenting it with photos and serial numbers. Boring, tedious work, the kind of thing useful Tom was good at. Then I went to work and had a meeting with Robert Chen. "About Denver," I said. "I'm interested." His face lit up. "Really? Tom, that's fantastic. When can you start?" "I need to stay here for a few months. Personal matters to settle, but after that I'm all yours." We shook hands. A promotion, a fresh start, a new life. But first, I had unfinished business, because Fiona wasn't the only one who'd be suffering consequences. Greg Stiles was about to learn that when you sleep with a married woman, you're not just betraying her husband, you're creating an enemy who knows exactly how to hurt you. And I was very, very good at my job. The thing about small communities, even wealthy suburban ones, is that they run on gossip like cars run on gasoline. Information is currency. Scandal is entertainment. And nothing spreads faster than the fall of someone who thought they were untouchable. I didn't have to work hard to destroy Greg Stiles. I just had to light the fuse and step back. It started with Marcy. My anonymous emails had done their job. She'd checked Greg's phone, found the evidence, and decided that her prenup be damned. She was going to burn his life to the ground. She started by throwing him out. He showed up at Alpha Athletics one Monday morning to find his clothes in garbage bags in the parking lot and the locks changed on their house. By noon, everyone in Riverside Estates knew. By evening, everyone in Columbus knew. Marcy, it turned out, was friends with half the women in our social circle, and she was not quiet about her husband's infidelity. She posted on Facebook a long, detailed account of Greg's affair, complete with screenshots of texts she'd gotten into his phone before confronting him. She named Fiona explicitly. Within hours, the post had been shared 300 times. I watched it spread from my office, tracking the comments like a meteorologist tracking a hurricane. The schadenfreude was delicious. All those people who'd laughed at Fiona's "marriage is just paperwork" joke were now dissecting her affair with the enthusiasm of true crime podcasters. Lexi Morgan, Fiona's best friend and gossip kingpin, turned on her immediately, posted her own status. "I'm shocked and disappointed to learn about my friend's choices. I had no idea this was happening." Which was a lie. I'd heard her laughing about it with Fiona in the kitchen, but it was a strategic lie. Lexi was cutting ties with the sinking ship. Then things got worse for Greg. Much worse. Someone, and I'm not saying it was me, but it definitely wasn't not me, sent an anonymous tip to the local health department about Alpha Athletics. Specifically, about the supplements Greg sold at his gym, the ones that came in unlabeled bottles and promised serious gains. Turns out, selling unlicensed supplements is illegal. So is operating a business without proper permits, which Greg also wasn't doing for his nutrition consulting side business. The health department showed up on Wednesday. By Thursday, Alpha Athletics was temporarily shut down pending an investigation. Greg's clients, the ones who weren't already canceling their memberships because of the affair scandal, now had no gym to go to. They were furious. The online reviews were vicious. Owner is a cheater and a fraud. Closed without notice, no refunds, scam artist. Hope the affair was worth losing your business, Greg. I watched it all unfold with the detached interest of a scientist observing a petri dish. This was what happened when you built your life on ego and shortcuts. One push and the whole structure collapsed. But I wasn't done with Greg yet. The real masterstroke came on Friday evening. Fiona was hosting, or had been scheduled to host, a charity gala for her PR firm. It was a big deal, the kind of event that got covered by the local society pages. 200 people, a silent auction, a keynote speech about community engagement. Fiona had been planning it for months. It was supposed to be her triumph, her moment to shine. I made sure it was something else entirely. I didn't crash the event. That would have been crude. Instead, I did something more elegant. I made sure that everyone there knew exactly who Fiona was and what she'd done. It started with the silent auction. Someone, again, not saying who, had donated a romantic weekend getaway package to the Marriott downtown. The description was very specific. Enjoy a luxurious stay in room 412, complete with champagne and roses. Perfect for those special Tuesday and Thursday evenings. Room 412 was where Fiona and Greg had been meeting. Then there was the keynote speech. Fiona was supposed to give it, but at the last minute, her boss, Patricia Powell, a woman who valued her firm's reputation above all else, decided to speak instead. And her speech was about integrity, honesty, and the importance of maintaining professional standards. She didn't mention Fiona by name. She didn't have to. Everyone in that room knew. I heard about it from Peter, whose wife had attended. "Dude," he said Monday morning, sitting in my office with his coffee. "Your ex-wife's gala was brutal. Patricia basically fired her in front of 200 people without actually saying the words, 'You're fired.' It was like watching a public execution by corporate speak." "Ex-wife-to-be," I corrected. "The divorce isn't final yet." "Still, that's cold." He paused. "I mean, she deserves it. But still. Did she deserve it?" I thought about that question a lot. Was I being vindictive, cruel, taking things too far? Then I'd remember her voice. "He's useful. Like having a very efficient personal assistant who occasionally shares your bed." And I'd think, no, this is exactly far enough. The fallout continued. Fiona was placed on indefinite leave from her PR firm, which was corporate code for start looking for a new job. Greg's gym remained closed, and his lawyer, a slick guy named Marcus Webb who specialized in helping rich people avoid consequences, couldn't do much when the evidence of wrongdoing was so clear. Marcy filed for divorce. Despite the prenup, she was going to take him for everything she could, and she had the fury of a woman scorned to fuel her legal team. And me? I went to work, picked up Zoe from school, made dinner, lived my boring, useful life, except I wasn't invisible anymore. People noticed me now. At the grocery store, at the gas station, at Zoe's soccer games, people would nod, give me knowing looks, sometimes even thumbs up. I'd become a folk hero in certain circles, the boring husband who'd outsmarted his cheating wife, the underdog who'd won. It should have felt good, triumphant. Instead, it felt hollow, like I'd won a game I'd never wanted to play. One evening, about 2 weeks after the gala disaster, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Greg Stiles on my porch. He looked terrible. Unshaven, rumpled clothes, the kind of exhaustion that comes from not sleeping for days. His muscles seemed deflated, like someone had let the air out of him. Tom, he said, can we talk? Every instinct screamed at me to slam the door in his face, but curiosity won out. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. What do you want, Greg? I want to know why. His voice was raw. I get it, okay? I slept with your wife. You had every right to be pissed. But this? Destroying my business, turning everyone against me, ruining my life? You ruined your own life, I said. I just documented it. Bullshit. You orchestrated this whole thing. The health department, the reviews, that thing at the auction. That was you. I didn't confirm or deny. Just looked at him. Why? He asked again. What did I ever do to you besides sleep with my wife? Besides mock me? Besides calling me the robot and laughing about how I'd never see it coming? I took a step closer. You treated me like I was nothing, Greg. Both of you did. You thought I was too boring, too passive, too stupid to fight back. You were wrong. I'm sorry, he said. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. It's not worth much. I turned to go back inside. Tom. His voice stopped me. Are you going to keep going? Or is this enough? I thought about that. Was it enough? Had I gotten my revenge, or was I just getting started? That depends, I said. Are you going to stay away from my family? From Zoe? From any attempt to salvage your relationship with Fiona? Fiona won't even take my calls, and I wouldn't go near Zoe if you paid me. I'm not a complete asshole. You're about 80% asshole, I said. But okay, stay away from us, and I'll stay away from you. Deal? He nodded. Looked like he wanted to say something else, then thought better of it. He walked back to his car, a BMW that had seen better days, and drove away. I went back inside. Zoe was doing homework at the kitchen table. Was that Greg? She asked without looking up. Yeah. What did he want? To apologize, sort of. Did you accept? I thought about that. I told him to leave us alone. Good. She finally looked up. Dad? I know you're doing all this revenge stuff. The gossip, the business with his gym. I'm not stupid. I know you're not. I just want to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Not because you're angry, but because you deserve better. We deserve better. Smart kid. Too smart. We do deserve better, I agreed. And after this is all over, we're going to have it. New city, new start. Just you and me. She smiled. And better pizza. Columbus pizza sucks. I'll add that to the list of requirements. But I was lying. Not about the new start or the better pizza. About being done. Because there was one more move to make. One final piece of the puzzle. And it involved making sure that Fiona and Greg didn't just lose. They lost everything. The divorce proceedings were moving forward. Fiona had hired a lawyer. Not a good one, because she couldn't afford a good one anymore. Her indefinite leave from the PR firm had become a permanent separation, and her job prospects were limited. Nobody wanted to hire the woman who'd become a cautionary tale about workplace affairs and public scandals. We were negotiating the settlement. Priya Singh was a shark in a suit, and Fiona's lawyer, a nervous young guy named David who looked like he'd just passed the bar exam, was completely outmatched. The asset division was straightforward. The house would be sold, proceeds split. Same with the investment accounts. I'd keep my retirement fund, she'd keep hers. I'd have primary custody of Zoe, with Fiona getting visitation rights. It was fair, equitable, exactly what the law prescribed. But I wanted more than fair. I wanted total victory. That's when I discovered the real twist. The thing that made everything else look like a warm-up act. It started with a phone call from Priya. Tom, we need to meet. Now. I found something. I drove to her office. She was waiting with a stack of documents and an expression that was equal parts shock and glee. Tell me, she said, did you know that Fiona and Greg were planning to start a business together? What? She spread the documents across her desk. I was doing discovery on Fiona's finances, and I found some interesting emails. Turns out, Greg convinced Fiona to help him with a scheme. He wanted to expand Alpha Athletics, but he needed capital. So he convinced Fiona to push you into a quick divorce, claiming she'd get half the assets. Then she'd invest her share into his gym expansion, and they'd run it together. I stared at the emails. There it was, in black and white. Fiona and Greg's grand plan. Use me for money, then ride off into the sunset together. There's more, Priya continued. Greg was also planning to use your IT expertise. He wanted Fiona to convince you to help set up the gym's computer systems, for free, as a favor, to help her get back on her feet post-divorce. Then he'd use those systems to hack into competing gyms' customer databases and steal their client lists. It was so stupid, so breathtakingly, monumentally stupid. Greg thought he could use me twice, once for money, once for skills, and I'd just go along with it because I was boring, useful Tom. Can we use this? I asked. Oh, we can use this. Priya's smile was predatory. Corporate espionage conspiracy, even if not executed, shows intent. It demonstrates that Fiona's actions weren't just an affair. They were part of a scheme to defraud you. That changes everything. We can argue for a much more favorable settlement, maybe even get you full custody with supervised visitation only. Do it. She did. The new evidence hit Fiona's lawyer like a freight train. David tried to argue that the emails were taken out of context, that Fiona had never intended to go through with it, that it was all just talk. But the evidence was clear. Dates, times, specific plans. Fiona and Greg had been plotting this for months. The settlement negotiation turned into a rout. Fiona would get minimal assets, just enough to avoid claims of leaving her destitute. I'd get the house, the majority of the investments, and full custody of Zoe. Fiona would have visitation rights, but they'd be supervised until she could demonstrate stability. When David presented the terms to Fiona, she tried to fight, tried to claim it was unfair, that I was being vindictive. Priya shut her down with surgical precision. Your client conspired to defraud my client as part of a scheme involving corporate espionage. She's lucky we're not pressing criminal charges. Take the deal, or we go to trial, and I promise you, the judge will be far less generous than we're being. Fiona signed. She didn't have a choice. But I still wasn't done. Because Greg had one thing left that mattered to him. His reputation. His image as the alpha male, the guy who won at life. I was going to take that too. It happened on a Saturday afternoon. Greg was at what remained of his gym. He'd managed to reopen after paying fines and getting proper permits, but most of his clients were gone. He was there alone, working out, probably trying to convince himself he could rebuild. I didn't confront him. That would have been too direct, too obvious. Instead, I did something more creative. I'd been collecting evidence of Greg's steroid use for weeks. Photos, testimony from former gym members, receipts from online purchases. I compiled it all into a neat package and sent it to the Ohio Athletic Commission, which regulated personal trainers and fitness professionals. They opened an investigation. Within a week, Greg's certifications were suspended. Without those certifications, he couldn't legally operate as a personal trainer or run a gym. Alpha Athletics closed for good. Greg lost everything: his business, his marriage, his reputation, his career. The final humiliation came from an unexpected source. Someone, I genuinely don't know who, and I didn't arrange it, created a meme using Greg's gym photos. The caption, "When you're so alpha, you lose everything including your wife, business, and self-respect." It went viral, not nationally, but locally. Everyone in Columbus saw it. Greg, the silverback Stiles, became a punchline. I should have felt triumphant. I'd won completely. Fiona was broke and humiliated. Greg was destroyed. I had my daughter, my house, my new job in Denver waiting. Instead, I felt empty. One evening, about a month before the move to Denver, I was packing boxes when Zoe came into my office. Dad, can I ask you something? Sure. Are you happy? I stopped packing. What do you mean? I mean, you won. You beat them. You got everything you wanted, but you don't seem happy. You seem, I don't know, tired. She was right. I was tired. Revenge, it turned out, was exhausting. I'm not sure happiness was the point, I said. Justice was the point. Is there a difference? I think so. Justice is about making things right. Happiness is about what comes after. So what comes after? I looked at the boxes, at the life I was packing up, at the future waiting in Denver. I guess we'll find out. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks later. I sat in the courtroom, Priya beside me, and listened to the judge declare that my marriage was officially dissolved. Fiona wasn't there. She'd waived her right to appear, probably couldn't face the final humiliation. It was over. 16 years, reduced to a judge's signature on a legal document. Just paperwork, like Fiona had said. I should have felt something. Relief, satisfaction, vindication. Instead, I just felt done. Peter took me out for drinks that night. You did it, he said, raising his glass. You actually did it. You beat them both. Yeah. So why do you look like you just lost something instead of won? Because maybe I did. I sipped my beer. I spent months destroying them, and I was good at it. Really good. But that's not who I want to be. Who do you want to be? I don't know yet, but not this. Not the guy who's defined by revenge. So what now? Now I move to Denver with Zoe. Start over, be boring again, but the good kind of boring, the kind where I'm just living my life instead of ruining someone else's. Peter nodded. That sounds healthy. Suspiciously healthy. Are you sure you're okay? I laughed. No, but I will be. The move to Denver came quickly after that. Zoe was excited. New school, new city, new adventures. I was cautiously optimistic. The job was good, the pay was better, and nobody in Denver knew about my divorce or my revenge or any of it. I could be anyone. Do anything. I could be boring Tom, but on my own terms. The day before we left, I drove past our old house one last time. It had sold quickly. Good neighborhood, good schools. A young family was moving in, full of hope and dreams, and the belief that their marriage would be different. I hoped they were right. I also drove past Alpha Athletics. The building was empty now, a for lease sign in the window. Greg had left Columbus, I'd heard. Moved to Florida to live with his brother, trying to start over somewhere nobody knew his story. Good luck with that. Fiona was still in Columbus, working as a receptionist at a dental office. It was the only job she could get. She saw Zoe every other weekend, supervised visits at a neutral location. The relationship was strained, but Zoe was trying. She was a better person than me. I didn't see Fiona before we left, didn't say goodbye. There was nothing left to say. On our last night in Columbus, Zoe and I ordered pizza and sat in our empty living room, surrounded by boxes. Are you going to miss it here? She asked. Some of it. The good memories, before everything went wrong. Do you regret it? The revenge thing? I thought about that. Did I regret it? I'd destroyed 2 people's lives. I'd been calculating, cold, ruthless. I'd become someone I didn't entirely recognize, but I'd also stood up for myself. I'd refused to be invisible. I'd proven that boring, useful Tom could bite back. No, I said finally. I don't regret it, but I'm glad it's over. Me too. She leaned against me. Denver's going to be better. Fresh start. Fresh start, I agreed. We sat there in the empty house, eating pizza, and for the first time in months, I felt something like peace. Denver was everything Columbus wasn't. Mountains instead of flatlands. Dry air instead of humidity. A city that felt young and energetic instead of settled and comfortable. The job was good, better than good. I was heading up the IT infrastructure for a new pharmaceutical facility, managing a team of 20, making decisions that actually mattered. People respected me, listened to me, saw me. It was strange, being visible. Zoe thrived. New school, new friends, new soccer team with a coach who understood the Geneva Conventions. She video chatted with Fiona every week, but the relationship remained distant. Cordial, but not close. Maybe it would heal with time, maybe it wouldn't. I dated a little, nothing serious. A few dinners, a couple of second dates, one woman named Rachel who lasted 3 months before we mutually agreed we were better as friends. I wasn't ready for serious, and I was honest about that. Mostly, I focused on work and Zoe and building a life that felt like mine instead of something I was managing for someone else. 6 months after the move, I got a call from Peter. "Dude," he said, "you need to hear this." "What?" "Greg's back in Columbus, and he's trying to open a new gym." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "What?" "Yeah. He's calling it Second Chance Fitness or some crap like that. Apparently he's been in therapy, found Jesus, and wants to rebuild his life. He's even got investors." "How?" "No idea. But Tom? People are buying it. The whole redemption story thing. He's doing interviews about how he hit rock bottom and learned from his mistakes. It's actually working." I should have been angry, furious. Greg was supposed to be destroyed, finished, gone. Instead, I felt nothing. Just a distant curiosity, like hearing about a movie plot. "Good for him," I said. "Good for him? Tom, this guy slept with your wife and tried to scam you." "I know, and I made him pay for it, but that's over. I'm done." "Are you sure? Because the Tom I knew 6 months ago would already be planning his next move." "That Tom was angry. This Tom is just tired." I looked out my office window at the mountains. "Let him have his second chance. I've got mine." Peter was quiet for a moment. "You really have changed." "Yeah, I think I have." We talked for a few more minutes, catching up on office gossip and his fantasy football league. When we hung up, I sat there thinking about Greg and second chances and whether people really changed. Then I went back to work. Because I had a database migration to manage, and that was more important than whatever Greg Stiles was doing in Columbus. That evening, I told Zoe about Greg's comeback attempt. "Huh," she said, not looking up from her homework. "Good for him, I guess." "You're not mad?" "Why would I be mad? He's not my problem anymore. He's not your problem anymore. He's just some guy in another city trying to get his life together." She looked up. "Unless you want him to be your problem? Because that would be kind of sad, honestly." "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You just started listening." She was right. About all of it. A few weeks later, I got an email from Fiona. The subject line was simple. "I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long time before opening it. "Tom," it read, "I know I don't have the right to ask for your forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Not because I got caught or because I lost everything, but because I hurt you. Because I took you for granted. Because I treated you like you were invisible when you were the only real thing in my life. I'm in therapy now, trying to understand why I did what I did, trying to become someone better, someone Zoe can be proud of, someone I can be proud of. I don't expect you to respond. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know that I see you now. I see what I had and what I threw away. And I'm sorry. I hope Denver is everything you wanted it to be. You deserve to be happy. Fiona." I read it 3 times, looked for the angle, the manipulation, the hidden agenda, found nothing. Just a woman who'd destroyed her life and was trying to understand why. I didn't respond. Didn't need to. The apology wasn't for me. It was for her. Part of her healing process. I deleted the email and moved on. Life continued. Work, Zoe, the occasional date, weekend hikes in the mountains. It was a good life, a quiet life, A boring life, in the best possible way. One Saturday, about a year after the move, Zoe and I were hiking when she asked, "Do you think you'll ever get married again?" "Maybe, if I meet the right person." "Why?" "Just wondering. You seem happy alone." "I'm not alone. I've got you." "You know what I mean? Like, romantically." I thought about that. "I think I'm okay either way. If I meet someone, great. If not, that's okay too. I don't need another person to complete me or whatever. I'm already complete." "That's very zen of you, Dad." "I have my moments." We hiked in comfortable silence for a while. The mountains stretched out around us, vast and indifferent and beautiful. "Dad," Zoe said eventually, "I'm proud of you, for everything. For standing up to Mom and Greg, for starting over, for being brave." "I don't feel brave. I feel like I just did what I had to do." "That's what brave is. Doing what you have to do even when it's hard." I hugged her. "When did you get so smart?" "I told you. I've always been smart. You just started listening." We finished the hike, went home, made dinner, watched a movie. Normal, boring, perfect. That night, lying in bed, I thought about the past year, about Fiona and Greg and revenge and justice and all of it. Had it been worth it? The months of planning, the cold calculation, the systematic destruction of two people's lives? I still didn't know. Maybe I never would. But I knew this. I wasn't invisible anymore. Not to myself, not to Zoe, not to anyone who mattered. I'd stood up. I'd fought back. I'd proven that boring, useful Tom could be dangerous when pushed. And then I'd walked away. Built something new. Chosen peace over perpetual war. Maybe that was the real victory. Not destroying them, but refusing to let them define me. I fell asleep thinking about mountains and fresh starts and the difference between justice and happiness. And for the first time in a long time, I slept without dreams of revenge. Epilogue. Full circle. 2 years after leaving Columbus, I got a wedding invitation. Peter was getting married, finally proposed to Melissa after dating for 8 years. The wedding was in Columbus, which meant going back to the city I'd left behind. I almost didn't go. Too many memories, too much history. But Peter was my friend, and friends showed up. So Zoe and I flew back for the weekend. Columbus looked the same, but felt different. Or maybe I was different, and the city was just a city. We stayed at a hotel downtown, drove past our old neighborhood but didn't stop. The wedding was beautiful. Peter was nervous and happy. Melissa was radiant, and the ceremony was mercifully short. At the reception, I found myself at a table with some old coworkers, making small talk about jobs and kids and the weather. Normal, boring, perfect. Then I saw her. Fiona was across the room, talking to someone I didn't recognize. She looked different, older, but also somehow lighter, like she'd been carrying something heavy and had finally put it down. Our eyes met. She gave a small nod. I nodded back. That was it. No drama, no confrontation, no unfinished business. Just two people who used to be married, acknowledging each other's existence. Later, I was getting drinks at the bar when someone tapped my shoulder. Tom Harker. Damn. I turned. Greg Stiles stood there, looking uncomfortable in a suit that didn't quite fit. He'd lost muscle mass, gained some gray hair. He looked human instead of superhuman. Greg. Can I buy you a drink? I know I'm probably the last person you want to talk to, but sure. We stood at the bar, two men who'd once been enemies, drinking whiskey in awkward silence. I heard you're in Denver, Greg said finally. Doing well. I am. You? I'm okay. The new gym is actually working out, smaller than Alpha but sustainable. I learned some things about business, about life. He paused. About being an asshole. Good lessons to learn. Look, Tom, I know I can't apologize enough for what I did, but I am sorry, genuinely. What I did to you, to Marcy, to everyone, it was wrong, and I paid for it. We both did. Yeah, you did. Can we? He struggled for words. Can we be okay? Not friends. I'm not asking for that. Just, okay? I thought about it. About revenge and justice and moving on. About carrying rocks in your pockets versus putting them down. We're okay, I said. What happened happened. But it's over. We're both different people now. He looked relieved. Thanks. That means a lot. We finished our drinks, shook hands, went our separate ways. Later, I found Fiona standing alone on the balcony, looking out at the city. Hey, I said. Hey. She turned. How's Denver? Good, really good. You? I'm okay. Working at a PR firm again. Smaller one, but I like it. Seeing a therapist, trying to be better. She paused. How's Zoe? She's great. Thriving. She's inside, probably judging everyone's dance moves. Fiona smiled. She gets that from you. The judging or the dancing? Both. We stood in comfortable silence. Below us, the city lights sparkled. I meant what I said in that email, Fiona said. I am sorry. For everything. I know. And for what it's worth, I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to let it go. She nodded. You were always smarter than people gave you credit for. I was always exactly as smart as I needed to be. People just weren't paying attention. I should have paid attention. Yeah, you should have. But that's over now. We're different people, different lives. And that's okay. Is it really okay? For you, I mean. Are you happy? I thought about my life in Denver, my job, my daughter, my quiet weekends and mountain hikes, the absence of drama and schemes and revenge. Yeah, I said. I really am. Are you? Getting there. One day at a time. That's all any of us can do. We stood there a moment longer, two people who'd once promised forever and had delivered something much shorter and more painful. But we'd both survived. Both grown. Both moved on. Take care of yourself, Tom. You too, Fiona. I went back inside, found Zoe on the dance floor, doing some move that probably had a TikTok name I didn't know. She saw me and waved me over. Dad, you have to dance. I really don't. You really do. It's a wedding. It's required. So I danced, badly, while my daughter laughed and the music played and life continued in all its messy, complicated, beautiful glory. The next day, Zoe and I flew back to Denver, back to our life, our home, our future. On the plane, she asked, Are you glad we went? Yeah, I am. It was good to see everyone, good to close that chapter. You seemed okay. Talking to Mom and Greg, that was big. It was, but it's over now, really over. No more anger, no more revenge, no more carrying that weight around. So what now? Now we live. We work and hike and eat too much pizza and watch bad movies. We have a boring, normal, happy life. Sounds perfect. It really does. The plane climbed into the sky, leaving Columbus behind. Below us, the city grew smaller and smaller until it was just a collection of lights and memories. I'd gone back for revenge. I'd destroyed the people who'd hurt me. I'd proven that boring, invisible Tom could be dangerous. And then I'd done something even harder. I'd let it go. I'd chosen peace over war, happiness over justice, living over winning. Maybe that was the real ending, not the destruction of my enemies, but the reconstruction of myself. I leaned back in my seat, closed my eyes, and thought about mountains and fresh starts and the life waiting for me in Denver. And I smiled, because marriage might be just paperwork, but life, real life, was so much more than that. It was everything.